What's up, guys? Welcome back to The Difference. I know it's been a while since we've been on air, so buckle up, guys, because tonight we are talking about Donald Trump, and more Donald Trump, starting with what he is calling a sham trial. Check out his fiery response to everything that's going on with this case.
We are awaiting response from Judge Juan Merchan to President-elect Trump's last-minute bid to delay sentencing in his New York criminal case. This is the trial involving Stormy Daniels that resulted in a felony conviction on falsifying business records. Many people, including my next guest at the time, said that this was a very, very weak case. It was tried in a New York court, and now Trump's legal team wants this Friday's sentencing delayed again as it appeals this verdict. Judge Merchan has signaled that he will sentence Trump to a, quote, unconditional discharge, meaning that no jail time or other penalties will exist 10 days before his inauguration. So what is the judge's goal here? Let's bring in former federal prosecutor and Fox News contributor Andy McCarthy. Andy, great to have you with us. Happy New Year. It's good to see you. This came from the DA moments ago. It's the last part of a statement that they put out. And it says, contrary to the defendant's claim, the mere fact that he has invoked presidential immunity in an interlocutory appeal does not entitle him to an automatic stay of further trial proceedings pending appeal. Can you unwind that for us?
Yeah, we remember that in the federal case, Martha, particularly the one in Washington, which was clearly based on President Trump's presidential activities in connection with January 6th of 2021 and the events that led up to it, that resulted in an automatic appeal because immunity, like double jeopardy, is one of the few legal issues in the criminal law that you don't have to wait until the end of the case to appeal. You get an instant appeal because the idea is that the problem is not wrongfully convicting someone, it's wrongfully putting them through criminal proceedings in the first place.
Right.
In the New York case, that was not a case that was based at least on allegations involving President Trump's official acts as president. But I think recklessly, Bragg and his prosecutors offered into evidence, and Judge Merchan admitted into evidence of President Trump's presidential activities to the point where they had two White House staffers come in and testify.
Right.
So that's a big problem for them.
So the argument is that they brought the White House into that courtroom and in evidence. They didn't really need to do that. And you feel that that was, hurt their case completely. Jonathan Turley said this about Merchan, who he and you have been very critical of throughout this entire process. The whole point of a trophy kill case is the trophy itself. Merchan will formally label the president-elect a convicted felon. It'll be punishment by soundbite, a historical footnote that will be repeated mantra-like in the media. Your thoughts on that, Andy?
Well, I think John is right about that. I'd also say, Martha, they were doing it anyway. Yeah. You know, people like me were out there saying, well, actually, he's not a convicted felon until he gets sentenced and the judgment is entered. That didn't stop them from using this rhetoric in the campaign. So I don't know how much impact it will actually have. But there's no doubt that the only reason they're doing this is they want to brand Trump a convicted felon. There's no other law enforcement or judicial reason for it. He's already said that even though he agrees that this was like the crime of the century where Trump supposedly stole the 2016 election, he's not going to sentence him to any jail time or even any probation. So this isn't a law enforcement or judicial thing. They want to politically brand this guy a convicted felon. That's what this is about.
Yeah. And it's ironic that the efforts to do that during the campaign period really backfired and blew up in their face because people weren't interested in that as a negative point against the former president, to the point where they dropped it from all of their campaign language because it clearly was hurting them and not helping them. But Merchan is hanging on to it like a piece of meat in a dog's teeth that he just doesn't want to let go of. And this seems to be the last gasp. Andy, thank you very much.
Guys, we have got with this trial, really, there's four options here, and I created the poll on YouTube, so go ahead and vote on it and let me know what you think. But I think there's really four options here when it comes to this trial, and that is that it's either a political hit job, and Trump is just right about the whole thing, or maybe at the least it's a flawed trial and they've exaggerated the claims, or it's a fair trial and Donald Trump is just deflecting, as a lot of people say he always does. Or maybe you're not sure, but either way, it sets a dangerous precedent. And so let me know what you think, guys. Put in the chat, hit vote on the poll. Let me know what you think about this trial. I'll tell you, there's a lot of implications that come along with this, but here's what I'm worried about more than anything, and that is that we are weaponizing the legal system and making it a political tool. And we've been doing this for the last few years. Trump is calling it a sham trial, and it might just be another example of the justice system being weaponized against political opponents. Because here's the thing, guys. Donald Trump, has anyone ever been prosecuted in the history of American politics like Donald Trump has been prosecuted? Now, I'm not saying the guy's perfect. I'm not saying that he hasn't made mistakes. I'm not saying he's not guilty. What I am saying is that it's insane, the amount of prosecution, the amount of I mean, it's normal for you to dig up dirt on your political enemies, but to impeach a president twice, right, to take him to trial, to prosecute him, to label him as a convicted felon, and then for him to come back and win in the next presidential election, is absolutely unprecedented. And I think it does raise concerns about fairness, impartiality, and the precedent that it's going to set for targeting political figures in the future. Let me know what you think in the chat, guys. And hey, welcome back to the show. Let's go, guys. It's been, I know during the holidays we were a little bit inconsistent on the show, but we're back, guys, and we've got a lot to talk about tonight. So buckle up, hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this, guys. We are live every weekday, 5 p.m. Central. All right. This next clip is fun. Kamala Harris lost to Donald Trump. Well, guess who has to certify the election results? It would be the vice president's job. So Kamala Harris loses to Donald Trump and then has to be the one that officially certifies that Donald Trump won because she's the current vice president. Yeah, so y'all check out this next clip. Very interesting, to say the least.
Donald J. Trump of the state of Florida has received 312 votes. Kamala D. Harris of the state of California has received 226 votes. This announcement of the state of the vote by the President of the Senate shall be deemed a sufficient declaration of the persons elected President and Vice President of the United States.
One word right there, guys. Awkward.
And that is how it's done. President-elect Trump's victory is certified exactly 2 weeks before he will be sworn in the inaugural on January the 20th for the second time, which has only happened one other time in U.S. history. So it is a very big January that we roll into here. You saw Vice President Harris carrying out her duties and what the New York Times called an awkward task of certifying the vote that she lost, although it has been done before by Al Gore, by Richard Nixon in similar situations. Trump reportedly watched it all, as you would expect, at Mar-a-Lago today, feeling, quote, pure vindication, as he should. It was a resounding electoral win. And that is the way it works. So let's bring in our panel. Jerry Baker, Wall Street Journal editor-at-large and Fox News contributor. Rich Lowry, National Review editor-in-chief, and Jessica Tarlov, host of The Five. What a great panel to start the year off with. Great to have you all here. Welcome. Happy New Year, everybody. Jerry, let me get your thoughts on what we just witnessed, a very civilized announcement of the winner of the 2024 election by the loser.
Yeah, it is an awkward moment. Obviously, you said there have been precedents. It's several times it's happened in the last 50, 60 years or so. But that is democracy in action. That is how it should be. That is, a losing candidate, as it happens to be the vice president. She therefore is the president pro tem of the Senate, has that duty to do that. That is how it should look. Didn't quite look like that 4 years ago, as we well know. And we're all glad to say that, fortunately, there is no disagreement about the result this time, and America can unite, I hope, around the president.
Your thoughts, Rich?
Yeah, well, look, I don't praise Kamala Harris very often, maybe ever, but standing up and doing that's not easy, and she fulfilled her constitutional role, so hats off to her. Obviously, January 6, 2021 will always be a black mark, but you got to remember, in 2017, the other side was not in much of a mood to accept Donald Trump
Absolutely
either.
not.
And
Yeah.
one of the reasons he has much greater head of steam this time around, there's been no effort to get faithless electors to vote against him. There's no conspiracy theory about how he won Senate on Russia, and there's not going to be a 2-year-long investigation blighting his initial term.
Jessica?
Well, I think that there's a big difference between people questioning the results of the election and then ultimately showing up to vote to ratify them. Hillary Clinton coming out and giving a concession speech and, yes, giving a few cable news interviews afterwards, talking about how he didn't think it was an illegitimate win versus what happened on January 6th. And it has been interesting is the kindest word I can see to watch all of these Republicans who came out in the wake of January 6, 2021, calling about a dark day in American history, that Donald Trump is personally responsible, that he should be held responsible for it. And now, they have fancy jobs in the new Trump administration, or they're, Senator Thune, the new majority leader, walking around saying, well, I was clear about what happened then, and I just want to move on, and I want to move forward. And that is where the American people are. I don't
Well, I
live
think
in
that's exactly the most important thing.
Totally.
The American people, I think regardless of the fact that there were efforts to try to drag them back to January 6th, they were done with it. And that isn't, where they, there's no judgment on that. That is the fact. They were over it.
But
they were done with it.
But it doesn't mean that we should pretend that it didn't happen,
No,
or
we never
that
do
he
that
did.
with history.
Well,
Yeah, I think
some people do want to rewrite it, like the president himself. A day of love is not what that day looked like.
But Martha, to Jessica's point, I mean, that has been litigated. January 6th has been litigated both literally in certain respects, thanks to the efforts of Jack Smith and others in Georgia and elsewhere. That has literally been litigated, hasn't gone anywhere, and it has been politically litigated because we've just had an election where the man who was accused of being responsible for what happened on January 6th put himself forward to the American people again and won bigger than he won in 2016, won won the popular vote and won the electoral college vote too. So, yes, we all can look back on that day and say, never again, we hope, please God.
Donald J. Trump of the state of Florida.
Hold on, guys. We'll try to get back to where we are, but can I just stop for a second and say, can we appreciate the irony of this situation for just a minute? Okay, Donald Trump left the White House with a bang 4 years ago with the what happened on January 6th with the protests there. And everyone labeled him as a sore loser and that this was a bad day for America. I don't know. I think the number of people that thought that he would come back 4 years later and win again were probably few and far between. At the moment, I thought it was over for him. I thought this was the end. I mean, but how many times does Donald Trump look like he's struggling and then he comes back and he lands a big victory? And you can't explain it. It just doesn't make sense. How ironic that the person that is racing against him, Kamala Harris, which should never have been put against him in the first place, but the Democratic Party was coming off of its rails with Joe Biden. And now here she is. And I can say that, man, how much prep do you think she went through to be able to do that with a straight face and not show any emotion? So, I mean, hats off to her for that because, wow. Talk about national television. You know that people are going to be picking this apart for years to come, where you have to certify Donald Trump, the person you hate, the person that you fought against. Just incredible irony here.
Look back on that day and say,
well, do we not have audio? Come on, let's try this one more time.
Donald J. Trump.
But he's the person that, as the person who they believe at that day. But
does that sound really weird, y'all? Okay. Well, we're not going to deal with technical issues. We'll just go on to our next clip. Because this is a conversation that happened. And I also want to say, guys, welcome to the stream. Thanks for watching. Hit that like button. Support the channel, guys. And don't forget to subscribe. I want to show you all this next clip because It happened. They actually recorded this before the results were certified by Kamala Harris. But I want to show it to you anyway because it's got some interesting conversation, some interesting dialogue that I want you to see because it's interesting. We can talk about it and some great points to be made about it. But before I do, just how resilient Trump's influence is. That certification could have been framed in a lot of ways, but I think it frames. It's a testament to Trump's lasting impact on American politics and the conservative movement in general. I mean, think about it. Despite years of opposition from political elites and the media, Donald Trump's reemergence as president-elect demonstrates the power of his voter base to push past those political progressive narratives. It's just incredible. Okay, check out this clip, guys, and pay close attention to what they're saying, guys. Very interesting.
We are less than an hour away from President-elect Trump's big election win becoming official. Congress will certify his victory today, and Vice President Kamala Harris is set to preside over her own defeat when the joint session convenes at 1 p.m. Eastern Time.
Again, guys, this video clip was made before they actually certified it. But again, there's some interesting conversation in here to listen to.
She will be only the third vice president in recent decades to do so after Richard Nixon in 1960 and Al Gore in 2000. Wow. So we will be watching history today, Harris, but in some ways we'll be seeing history repeat because when you really think about the hand that President-elect Trump's being dealt, it's much like the hand Obama dealt him with a broken border, with ISIS seemingly on the surge, with our enemies emboldened like North Korea and Iran. It's a similar hand Biden's giving him.
Yeah, the irony there, though, is if the border wasn't what it should have been, and part of that was all those undocumented children who had been let into the country illegally under Obama, he was the deporter-in-chief, though, of criminal aliens. So, I mean, it's so much worse now than even then. It was bad, but now it's even worse. Look, this is also a situation where you basically beat two candidates. I mean, the Democratic Party destroyed their own in Joe Biden by taking him off the ticket and replacing him with someone who also couldn't beat.
My bad. Guys, that is such a great point that she just made there. How many presidents, how many candidates have to defeat two? He defeated Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. He debated against both of them. That's crazy when you think about it.
Donald Trump. So it's almost like punch two birds with one stone. I hate to put it that way, but that's kind of what it's like. And so politically right now, it's got to be tough for Kamala Harris. She failed on one of her biggest assignments, if not the biggest, in border. That's one of the biggest issues that ushered him into the office, as you just pointed out. But she's also failing because now she's on a date that they had hoped, and you know what they were doing in ads and everything about this date, January 6th. And in fact, all these years later, it is the exact date that she certifies Donald Trump. Don't think that's not lost on anybody in the Democratic Party. They may not want to say it out loud, but just dial up those ads and see what they were using.
Jeremy,
Wow.
Steve Kornacki put the magnitude of Trump's victory in a very interesting way. I heard it over the weekend. We all know Trump won all 7 swing states. Trump got the highest raw vote total of any Republican president. New York Post reported that a while back. But here's Steve Kornacki on something I hadn't heard. Listen.
Put this all together, and basically 1/3 of the non-white vote was won by Donald Trump. And as a share of the overall of Trump's overall coalition nationally, there's never been a Republican presidential candidate whose coalition percentage-wise has been as the non-white concentration of that coalition has never been as high in a presidential race as what we're seeing right here in 2024 with Donald Trump.
That is perhaps the greatest political accomplishment I think Donald Trump has made.
That's exactly right. I mean, this was historic for so many different reasons, not just the 78 million, nearly 78 million votes that he tallied for himself. And as you said, you know, the Republican with the most highest raw vote total in history. But to be able to build the coalition that he has built, people saying, look, everyday Americans matter. That's been President Trump's message, and he's been putting America first, and that's why he's seen this really historic election. But there's also some other history being made today that I didn't want to miss this moment for those on the left who are obsessed with identity politics. Vice President Harris will preside. She'll be the first woman of color to preside over her own election defeat today. So, congratulations to her. But in all seriousness, Donald Trump broke the Democrat Party. I mean, the Democrat Party right now is in a total identity crisis. They don't know if they're going to go back to try to double down on the lawfare and try to double down on the identity politics, or some are trying to be a little bit more introspective. But the bottom line is that they don't know which way to go because they've realized everything they've tried has failed.
Yeah, it has. Fareed Zakaria commented much on what Martha said, the global shift that we've seen. Let's listen to this.
Countries with more than half of the world's population went to the polls last year. And the basic message they sent to their governments was one of dissatisfaction and anger with the status quo. Their frustration, however, seemed to be particularly focused on the party that has traditionally been identified with big government, the left. Almost everywhere you look, the left is in ruins. In the U.S., of course, the breadth of Donald Trump's victory, nearly 90% of counties in America moved right, suggests that it is very much part of this trend. The crisis of democratic government, then, is actually a crisis of progressive government. People seem to feel that they have been taxed, regulated, bossed around, and intimidated by left-of-center politicians for decades, but the results are bad and have been getting worse.
100%, guys. If this is anything, this election was a triumph for democracy. Trump's 2024 victory is a testament to the resilience of American voters. I'll tell you what they did. What we did in 2024, guys, is we rejected years of political overreach, and we reaffirmed our conservative principles. And I was thinking about this, what are the conservative principles really that pushed people to wake up and just reject this insanity that's coming from the left? And I think it's those conservative principles of limited government. Limited government is so important. And the Doge Committee, the Doge Commission is huge, guys, for what Donald Trump is trying to accomplish. Second of all is personal freedom. People just get tired of you telling them what they can say, what they can do. People get tired of you labeling them because they vote for a certain person. People get tired of that kind of mess, all right? And third really is economic prosperity. I think we all got tired of inflation, right? Over the last few years. It's insane, guys. And it shouldn't be that way. Economics is not rocket science. Like, just putting a few common sense policies in place can really make a huge difference. And that's what we did in 2024 is we voted for the economy. We voted for our freedom. And we voted to start limiting this way overbloated, crazy government. But hey, guys, I want to welcome everyone that's watching in the stream. We've got just a little bit more to talk about tonight. But anyway, hey, welcome, Betty, in the chat. Guys, let me know if you're watching. Hit me up in the chat. Also, hit that poll. What's your take on Donald Trump's trial? It's hitting the news. It's really big right now. January 6th. He gets officially elected as president, right? But tell me what you think about the trial. Was it a political hit job? Was it a flawed trial? Was it a fair trial? Or maybe you're on the fence and not really sure what it was. Let me know. Hit me up in that poll. Okay, guys, I told y'all this clip has so much good stuff in it about why the American people push back against progressive policies, and we put Donald Trump back in the White House.
Here's what I think he left out, Emily. This is not just a shift from left to right. This is a working class shift that we are seeing globally. It's the truckers in Canada. It's the steel workers in the United States. It's a realignment of the working class that typically identified with liberal politics to a more conservative-minded governance.
Because he's absolutely right in that thoughtful point, which is that while here, the narrative was an attempt to shape the party of the left as one fighting for the individual over the masses, being seen, being heard, not being offended. The reality was it was just big government. And all of those members of big government were telling those individuals exactly how to feel, how to think, and how to vote. And if they didn't do in lockstep, then they were canceled and banished. And the result again, as he said so perfectly concisely, was that the overregulation in this country stifled the American population. The cancellation of ideas, the censorship of thoughts and communications stifled the American people and across the world. And at its heart, there might be ideas in there that are worth embracing and noting. But at the end of the day, that's reflected in freedoms. That's reflected in freedoms of thought and speech and voting and attending schools and the discourse in schools and the like. But all of that was veiled under the censorship and cancellation of this government, the big government. So, yes, he's absolutely right. The people have spoken. And now, thank goodness, today marks the first step or the next step in reclaiming that power and the freedoms of the American people.
And Martha, now how does Trump manifest this? There was some news this morning where last night he said he wants one big, beautiful bill. Then with Hugh Hewitt this morning, he said he's okay with the two-part bill so long as things happen quickly. It will be very interesting to see if we get one or the two-step process.
Well, the returning president knows he has to get results quickly, right? I mean, you look back at the first term and there were questions about the first legislation that was taken up and whether or not it was the right way to go. They have a lot of pressure to get this right in the first 100 days, and I think there's every reason to believe that they're going to. One of the things that strikes me as I hear everyone talking about this around the couch is taxation and the onerous nature of taxation that the left has told Americans for decades was going to make things better because they were going to give their money to the government and the government was going to take care of them. And as Fareed Zakaria breaks down in his piece really well, in New York City, we pay 10 times what they pay in Miami-Dade per student for education, 10 times. And look at the really horrible results that we get. So I think Americans are waking up. They're saying, you know what? I'm tired of my tax money getting sucked in and not producing results. They like the idea of DOGE. And I think you have to give Elon Musk a lot of credit for forcing this issue, for saying, no, we're going to make things more efficient. And this is a huge undertaking, and I think that it's very significant that President-elect Trump has really given him, the credence of this message, and there's a huge burden on them to actually carry this out to the greatest extent possible.
It's such a fantastic point. You get no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. You might have a movement that outlasts the person of Donald Trump. It keeps conservatives in power for quite some time.
Can I ask you a question? Because out of all of us, you've actually seen the first 100 days or the middle part even of a White House. What's going on in those first 100 days?
Well, now you have, Donald Trump Jr. said this over the weekend. I think it's such a good point. You have a president who had 4 years to sit there and think through exactly what he wants to do. If you think he was just sitting at Mar-a-Lago, that is not what he was doing. He has planned this out meticulously. You will not see a situation, I predict, like Affordable Care Act being overturned where the thumbs down. This is going to be, I think you could get one big, beautiful bill. A Republican Party that comes in full steam ahead, all the creases ironed out, and you might have the greatest political bill in history should they do one bill that hits border, energy, and taxes. We'll see.
I love that optimism.
But we'll see. The Mar-a-Lago planning will go a long way.
Isn't that huge, guys? Because they made a great point there that the first 4 years that Donald Trump was in office, he didn't really know what he was getting himself into. I mean, he knew to a certain extent, but he had never done it before. He'd never done politics before. And then this time around, he's not only had a 4-year break because of Joe Biden and his failed presidency, but now he's been able to strategize, pull together a team so that from day one, this is going to be the most effective. Watch it, guys. Making the prediction, the most effective first 100 days in the history of any president in the United States ever. And what I appreciate from all this is what we are witnessing here, again, 2025. And Happy New Year's to everyone. Again, thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. Join the community, y'all. But what we're witnessing here at the beginning of 2025 is a collapse. It's a collapse of the left's agenda. The terrible, ridiculous, insane agenda that has been pushed and shoved down the throats of Americans. Democrats Party, their inability to counter Trump's bold policies. Because look at this, I love Trump because of this. He didn't come in trying to win left votes. He didn't come in trying to play down the middle. Like, how many Republicans have been sacrificing their values and their ideas to try to play down the middle and try to win some left votes? Donald Trump came in and he said, forget the left votes, forget this crazy progressive mess. I'm just going to be bold about what I think and what I believe. And in so doing, he has connected with everyday Americans, and what it's led to is a political reckoning. He's exposed the flaws in the progressives' agenda. He's paved the way for a renewed focus on traditional American values, and I think that that's what a lot of people really wanted to see in the end. All right, guys. Thanks for watching today's show. We'll be back tomorrow with another one, 5 o'clock Central. So be sure to tune in, set your reminders. Come in, check the stream ahead of time. Don't forget to leave a like on today's stream, guys. It really helps out the YouTube algorithm. Appreciate everybody for watching again. Appreciate all the support, all the love. Okay, here's the results on the vote, guys. So the poll that I put up, 6 votes, 67% saying that it was a political hit job and that Trump was right on the Stormy Daniels trial. And then a third of y'all, 33%, saying that it was a fair trial and that Trump is deflecting. So anyway, interesting results there. All right, guys, y'all take it easy. I'll see you again tomorrow with another one.